According to the Jewish historian Josephus, there were actually quite a few guys who people thought might be the Messiah walking around Judea roughly around about the same time as Jesus.
None of them succeeded. They all failed. They were all killed. And can you really be the Messiah if you don't achieve anything?
Which is why the vast majority of Jews in the middle of the first century don't follow Jesus.
Because a Messiah was not supposed to die on a cross executed by the Romans. Because this is somebody who's supposed to lead a successful military victory, if you just get executed as a revolutionary, in the eyes of most Jews, that rules you out.
Can't possibly be the Messiah.
This documentary's been out a few years now, and I think what's pretty amazing is no one's debunked it. As far as I can tell, maybe someone has. I haven't found it online per se. But what I find very interesting is this thing is so weak, so poorly put together, so ill-researched. Isaiah 53 simply points out that the Messiah, the chosen one, is going to die a criminal's death for the sins of mankind. It's clearly in Scripture. It's foretold prior to him coming. So according to this documentary, a Messiah who dies and doesn't get anything done certainly can't be the Messiah. No, he's fulfilling Scripture. It's very obvious. These straw man arguments that they create are just utterly foolish and silly. I'm almost foolish and silly to waste my time debunking it, but I think it's important to use this as a teaching opportunity, the fact that, yes, Jesus clearly was going to die. He's both the lion and the lamb. The lamb comes and dies for the sins of mankind, introduces the church age. Later on, he comes back as the lion, judging the living and the dead. It's just that simple. It's foretold all through Scripture.
Can't be the Messiah in that precise understanding. So what they reinterpret, they reinvent the meaning of the word.
A crucified Messiah was kind of like fried ice cream. It's an oxymoron, it's a paradox. And the Messiah doesn't get crucified. He rises up, defeats the Romans, and establishes a new Davidic kingdom.
What is that? So you want to be a Messiah?
Well, the Messiah, actually.
Okay. Did you kick the Romans out of Judea?
Well, no, not yet, but I tried.
Have you converted the world to Judaism?
Well, no, I'm planning on it, but, it's...
Did you bring about world peace in your lifetime?
Well, not yet, no, but...
Boy, bye. You really don't have the qualifications to be the Messiah, now do you? Maybe you should try carpentry. I see you have some experience in that area. Next.
So someone came up with the idea to pitch the concept of the Messiah to the Gentiles.
Wait, I've got an idea. What if we market it to Gentiles?
So what you see in early Christian writings is a sort of redefinition of a Messiah.
Which is a pretty wacky idea when you think about it, because the whole point of the Messiah was he was supposed to save the Jews from the Gentiles, not save the Gentiles.
I got an idea. Let's market this dead Messiah guy to the Gentiles. Just regarding the fact that he's actually a resurrected Messiah. They seem to leave that fact out over and over again. That's probably the key point that made him so attractive to anybody. Anybody who rises from the dead will most likely be worth listening to. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Original sin occurred. He was disgusted with mankind due to the evilness of their heart. By Genesis 6, he gets Noah and his boat together. He destroys the earth and drowns everybody in it. He tells Noah and his descendants, hey, go spread out and repopulate the planet Earth. They go down to the lush valley of Shinar and build this Tower of Babel and start dissing God again. God confuses the language and then assigns the sons of God to oversee the 70 nations. There's 70 sons of God, therefore he created 70 nations. God turns around and picks Abraham, and he's going to bring forth a new nation out of Abraham. Matter of fact, you can see this in Genesis 32. So what he does is he brings Abraham up, and he's going to, through Abraham, bring forth the Messiah eventually. As a matter of fact, in Genesis 12:3, if you want to see how early God had it in his plan to go after the Gentiles, it wasn't an afterthought during the New Testament time or the beginning of the church. No, Genesis 12:3 says that your family will be a blessing to all the nations. So God takes and focuses on Abraham, brings them forth into a big mighty nation, but there's a problem. They become kind of bigoted and prejudiced towards all these other nations. So Jesus tells a story about the Good Samaritan having a Gentile Samaritan, having this despised individual be the hero of the story. And then, of course, Peter in Acts 10, which is about 10 years after Pentecost, he gets this vision of these 3 sheets coming down, 1, 2, 3 times with all these unclean animals, and God says, eat, eat. Peter's like, no, of course I'm not going to eat. Those are unclean. I've never eaten anything unclean. So he's working on the early prejudice to show the Jewish early church that the Gentiles need to be reached. It's time to go after them. Simultaneously, Cornelius, a Gentile, a God-fearer, is given a vision and told to go send for Peter, and they have this conversation, and Peter explains the gospel to Cornelius, and Cornelius and his whole family come to faith. Then we see at that time they send forth Saul and Barnabas to Antioch, and the first Gentile church is born in Antioch. So it was always planned to be this way. It wasn't a surprise. We clearly see that Jesus Christ, the Messiah, is the Messiah for both Jews and Gentiles. And we see beautiful things about how the church is a unity of Jews and Gentiles. It's one body, one spirit, one church, one blood, one salvation. It's awesome. And it was from God's plan from the get-go. All right, this concludes episode 10. I'm going to make some more whether I like it or not.